Good morning, Anthem community. We are so grateful you have chosen to join with us in worship this morning. A few things we want to share with you. As you may know, we now have 2 services. If you are local in the area watching this, we want you to know that we now have 2 services, one at 10:30 a.m., one at noon, every single Sabbath. We're hoping that makes it available for anyone that would like to join us to come through. If you are a family member here at the University Church who's been taking your kids to Sabbath school and you've not been able to join us, now is your opportunity. And we'd love for you to bring your kids. So please, please, please know that there is space for you here at Anthem. You belong here. We believe that you belong here. We are excited to worship with you today. Also, if you are a student in the area, if you're watching this and you are here on our campus here at Loma Linda, we have an incredible opportunity for you. October 16th, that's next week, there is a free luncheon for you, but you need to grab a ticket. We have a limited number of lunches and you need to grab a ticket. So please make sure to find one of the Anthem leadership, including myself or Pastor Josh or any of the leadership. And we would love to get that for you because we would love to see you there and get to know you and pour into you. Y'all, it has been a long week. I don't know about you. It's been a busy week, especially here on our campus with having students back. But we are so excited. We feel the energy on the campus rising of the excitement of the students to be in person and to be here present worshiping today. And so we are thankful that you have joined us. Before we get started in worship, though, let's have a quick word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the space that you have created for Anthem, for the ministry that it serves, and for the calling to this area and this campus that it serves. I thank you for everyone watching, no matter where they are. I ask that you would bless them, that you would pour your peace into them, that you would be present with them today as we step into the space of worship, that their hearts would be open, that their minds would be prepared for both the praise that is about to start and the word that will be preached today. God, we thank you and we praise you for this opportunity, for the space, for the freedom to worship in this way. And we thank you for what you are about to do during this service. In your precious name, amen. Let's get going into worship, y'all.
We want to welcome you to Anthem. Why don't we go ahead and stand up and worship? Here we are.
Every blessing to my heart to sing thy praise, streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mountain fixed upon it, mounts of thy redeeming love. Praise the mountain fixed upon it, mounts of thy redeeming love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I come. Sing, and I hold by the pleasure safely to arrive. Jesus saw me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He to rescue me from danger, interposed his precious blood. He to rescue me from danger, interposed his precious blood. Oh, to grace, how great a day. Let's sing. Daily let thy goodness bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy
to season 3, why don't you turn to the person next to you and give them a nice hello? Let them feel welcome, let them feel loved. Guys, the point of us being here is not just worshiping together, but that we get to build community, to build family. And so we hope you know you are dearly loved, and we hope that you truly are blessed by today's message. So welcome to Anthem.
Also, as people come in, we're just getting you to squeeze to the center as people come in so they can see the seats to the side. And let's continue worshiping this morning.
God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant, of faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you'll do just what you say. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise
gonna introduce myself now.
Introduce yourself to me.
Okay, I'm Caleb Valenzuela. I'm a D2 at the Loma Linda University School of Dentistry, and I live in Riverside. I've lived there for as long as I can remember. There's so many churches around here, so many, and I like a lot of them, but the community at Anthem is so authentic. The music's great, like the sermons are great, the whole setup is amazing, all of that. But the reason I keep coming back is because of the community. In a weird way, I feel special when I come here. You know what I mean? I feel loved. I can walk up to anyone who's a part of this community and just start talking to them, and they care about how my day was. They care about how my week was. What's building is something beautiful. Music is a huge part of my life. People are always like, why do you make the time still to make music? But the truth is, I would go crazy if I didn't. It's just me and my guitar, and I'm just worshiping God in my room. Those are the moments where apart from like worshiping at church, those are the moments where I feel the closest to God. It's just an intimate moment, me and God. I was worshiping at Anthem, one of the outdoor services, and I felt the Spirit, and I was like, man, I really want to be a part of this. And so that's actually the day that I went up to Josh, and over time I've just kind of become a part of Anthem. Sometimes I'll have the worst practice, I'll just feel like I wasn't hitting the harmonies, or I just wasn't into it. But then when I'm up there, it's like I give it to God, and I can see the results. And a lot of the time I'll talk to people who were also feeling it, who felt the Spirit in that moment. And that's why I do it, because, I don't know, I feel like that's the closest I ever feel to God. I'm definitely a sinner, and I definitely have my struggles. And I still feel, even within all that, even at my lowest moments, when I've been at Anthem during some of my lowest moments, I still feel comfortable enough to come to ask the questions that need to be asked. I don't feel like anything is just kind of pushed under the rug. I don't know, I just feel free to explore what it means to be a better follower of God. I started dental school in a pandemic, right? And so I didn't even meet I'm still meeting some of my classmates, and we've been in school together for 4 quarters. 4.5. Okay, it's been over a year. But I've connected with so many people at Loma Linda University, at Anthem. You can't get through life without community. And you can't get through dental school, medical school, physical therapy school, whatever it may, you can't get through that stuff without other people there. I'm here because I want to tell the world that Anthem's great, and I think it's the perfect place for someone who's looking to continue their walk with God, continue into a community. Come to Anthem, man. Anthem's great.
So there are a lot of things I love about pastoral ministry, but I don't think there's anything I have enjoyed more. Some things I've enjoyed as much, but I don't think there's anything I have enjoyed more than weddings. Having the privilege of officiating at a wedding is a unique and special privilege. You kind of get the whole experience of a family in the preparation for it and then the execution of it. I've seen a lot of things at weddings. I've seen the little kids who are supposed to be part of the wedding take it over, and all the attention goes to them. I've seen parents up front trying to disguise from family and friends that they're trying to control their kids, but they're telling them, to get over here and stand straight and be still and don't move and all the rest. I've watched the beads of perspiration on the foreheads of brides and grooms. I've seen grooms cry through their wedding vows. I've seen a bride faint. In fact, talking about that one, it was a beautiful wedding, beautiful bride, handsome groom. They were excited. The place was packed. I don't know who was in control of the AC, but they weren't doing anything. And it was getting hotter and more stuffy. We finally got down to the end of the ceremony. It's the vows time. They turn and they face each other and they're holding hands. And I'm going through the vows with him. And I noticed that she's grabbing, she's got his hands, and then she's grabbing his wrist, and then she's grabbing his forearms, and she's leaning into him, and it's like, hey, wait, this is not the honeymoon yet. Just wait a minute. Still people here. And she's leaning in, and then suddenly she just kind of wilted right into his arms. He caught her. The violins played, the angels sang. It was all very romantic. You know, he held her up and then he carried her over and laid her down. And everybody's like, oh, wow. And I'm racing to find the person in control of this venue. I said, you got to get some air in here. This is way too hot. And so they gave her some water and gave her some breathing room. And finally we got back and everybody's back up there. We're just about to start again. And I thought, there's a question I ought to ask here. Because I was going to pick up where we had been. And I looked at her and I said, do you remember that he said, I do to you? And she said, no. I said, okay, we're backing up. We're doing this over again. And so it's the only time I've done vows twice with a groom. But she had to hear those two words. I do. I tell couples, get those in the right order. Don't get nervous and say, do I? Be sure you got it straight. She had to hear those words, I do, because those words are the foundation. They are the commitment. They are the vow, the promise for this relationship to have a foundation on which to grow. In essence, what they are doing is they're saying, you have my heart. You have my heart. I think that's the question God asks us. Do I have your heart? Do I have it? In fact, for newly married couples, it's exciting because they go from that ceremony to the wedding and then they come home and they set up housekeeping. They've got a new apartment, a new house. They're putting pictures on the wall, getting furniture, trying to set things up. This feels like us. This is ours. It's an exciting time, but none of that would have any significance if each partner didn't know about the other, I've got their heart. So I've been wanting to have this conversation with our church for some time now. I had long-range planning, had planned, let's do this at the time the new building opens. The opening of a new building, especially like this one that offers so many ministry opportunities, is a key time for a congregation to talk about important things. Who are we? What do we stand for? What are we here to do? And then came COVID. And so the building opened in awkward and strange ways, and there was no one here and all the rest. So we've kind of delayed that conversation until now. But for these 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about who we are, why we're here, who owns our heart, the important realities. Now, there are many places we could go to look for that. We could go to the life and the ministry of Jesus, who had a great deal to say about the heart. Not the least of which was when he said, the most important commandment of all is love the Lord your God with all your heart. God wants to know that he has our hearts. So we could go there. We could go to various places in the New as well as in the Old Testament. We could go to the old wise man, Solomon, who said, guard well your heart because out of it are the issues of life. Who has your heart? But we're not going to go to any of those. We're going to go to a book I was thinking about this week, I don't think I've ever preached from this book, certainly not a series. I've been worried about it because it's a strange book, I'll tell you that right now. Written by a weird man. But that's where we're going. We're going to the Old Testament book of Ezekiel. Now, just in case you think I'm overstating the case, Ezekiel did some bizarre things. You start reading his book, and if you can get past all the symbols and cataclysmic destruction and signs and all of that, and just get to the man himself, you're like, I'm not sure I want to hang around with this guy. This is the guy for ministry purposes. He shaves his head. He refuses to mourn for his wife. He eats food while he's shaking all over. He gets into an argument with God about whether or not to cook the meat over, get this is in Scripture, whether or not to cook it over a fire burning human excrement or cow dung. That's Ezekiel. There are literally some people that write about Ezekiel who say, dude's crazy. He's just straight up crazy. And yet, as you read and you begin to understand what Ezekiel is saying, an amazing picture begins to emerge. So, the context. Ezekiel is in exile in Babylon, about 1,700 miles from Jerusalem. He's sitting in his house. He's surrounded by the elders from Judah. They're having a conversation. We don't know exactly what the conversation was about, but we can guess because of the vision that burst upon him in that moment. It's likely that what they were talking about was asking questions like, why are we here? Why are we in exile? Were we really all that bad? Why did God allow this to happen to us? Why? And suddenly the vision comes. It's a long vision, covers 4 chapters. We're going to read all 4. No, not really. We're not going to read all that. We are going to read the opening section and then one other piece toward the end. But let me just give you an overview of what the vision is. The first section, chapter 8, is God saying, this is why you are where you are. This is what happened to our relationship. Second chapter is God's response to that, and it is a response that will leave you shaking in your sandals. Ezekiel chapter 9. If you read it this afternoon, please just remember this. It's a vision. A vision. These aren't actual events, a vision. Ezekiel chapter 10 is God leaving the temple, leaving Jerusalem, leaving it all behind, a land bereft of the presence of God. And then the last part 4, is in chapter 11, where God says, now this is my dream for my people. So that's the overview of the vision. So we're going to start with the first, with chapter 8, with why they are in exile. Now, I just have to tell you, I'm going to read this in a paraphrase called The Message. I chose to read it in The Message because the language is more accessible and we can get a better picture of what's happening. So here we go. In the 6th year, in the 6th month, and the 5th day, while I was sitting at home meeting with the leaders of Judah, it happened that the hand of my master God gripped me. When I looked, I was astonished. What I saw looked like a man, from the waist down like fire, from the waist up like highly burnished bronze. He reached out what looked like a hand and grabbed me by the hair. The Spirit swept me high in the air and carried me in visions of God to Jerusalem. Remember, 1,700 miles away. It's a long trip. To the entrance of the north gate of the temple's inside court, where the image of the sex goddess that makes God so angry had been set up. Right before me was the glory of the God of Israel, exactly like the vision I had seen out on the plain. He said to me, Son of man, look north. I looked north and saw it. Just north of the entrance loomed the altar of the sex goddess Asherah that makes God so angry. Then he said, Son of man, do you see what they're doing? Outrageous obscenities. And doing them right here. It's enough to drive me right out of my own temple, but you're going to see worse yet. He brought me to the door of the temple court. I looked and saw a gaping hole in the wall. He said, Son of man, dig through the wall. I dug through the wall and came upon a door. He said, now walk through the door and take a look at the obscenities they're engaging in. I entered and looked. I couldn't believe my eyes. Painted all over the walls were pictures of reptiles and animals and monsters, the whole pantheon of Egyptian gods and goddesses being worshipped by Israel. In the middle of the room were 70 of the leaders of Israel, with Jazaniah, son of Shaphan, standing in the middle. Each held his censer with the incense rising in a fragrant cloud. He said, Son of man, do you see what the elders are doing here in the dark, each before his own favorite God picture? They tell themselves, God doesn't see us. God has forsaken the country. Then he said, you're going to see worse yet. He took me to the entrance at the north gate of the temple of God. I saw women there weeping for Tammuz, the Babylonian fertility god. He said, have you gotten an eyeful, son of man? You're going to see worse yet. Finally, he took me to the inside of the court of the temple of God. There between the porch and the altar were about 25 men. Their backs were to God's temple. They were facing east, bowing in worship to the sun. He said, have you seen enough, son of man? Isn't it bad enough that Judah engages in these outrageous obscenities? They fill the country with violence and now provoke me even further with their obscene gestures. That's it. They have an angry God on their hands. From now on, no mercy. They can shout all they want, but I'm not listening. It's really stunning. Because in the vision, what happens is Ezekiel is taken one step at a time toward the central porticos of the temple, toward the holiest places where people were to encounter God. And the people, the leaders, were worshiping the fertility gods of the nations around them. Now understand, part of what was involved in fertility worship was the ancient idea that if you wanted the gods to give you fertility, fertility to your crops, to your fields, fertility to your flocks and to your herds, you had to sexually couple with someone else in order to incite them to that. And so it was typically done with temple priestesses and temple priests right here in God's house. And God says to Ezekiel, look what's happening. You wonder why you're in Babylon? Look what's happening. Now when you read chapter 9 and you see the wrath of an angry God in vision, remember that, you understand. Because for a husband to walk in on a wife, a spouse to walk in on another spouse, find them in bed together and not react, that ain't love. God loves his people enough so that when he sees what's happening, he says, what is wrong? I have lost your heart. And when I lose your heart, I've lost everything about you. If you want to enter into the feeling of God, the pathos of God in this story. Just imagine, we talked about weddings earlier. Just imagine one of those couples, 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, and the husband walks in, and he walks through his house. He hears certain familiar sounds coming from the bedroom, but before he can ever get there, on the living room walls, on the hallway walls, he sees pictures of another man embracing his wife, kissing his wife. Who is this? Where did this come from? How long has this been going on? Pictures in my own house? The feelings that arise in him, that's God right here. God is saying, I've lost your heart. I went back this week and looked. Couldn't believe it's been 20, 25 years ago. Some of you will remember, some have only seen the images. They called her the world's princess, Princess Diana. Elegant, stately, bright, articulate, and everything was crumbling around her. Her marriage, her relationship with the royals. It was then that she sat down for an interview with the British journalist Andrew Morton. And Andrew Morton, in the interview, asks her, do you think you'll ever be queen? She's thoughtful for a minute. She says, no, I don't. Why not? Well, the royals aren't real wild about me. And besides, I want to be the queen of people's hearts. That had me right there, I'll tell you. The feelings kind of rushed back from those years ago and the tragedy that happened. And then came the moment when Morton looked at her and said, the breakdown of your marriage, Mrs. Parker Bowles, did she have anything to do with that? And that elegant, graceful woman paused, then looked up at Morton and said, well, there have been 3 of us in this marriage, so it's been a bit crowded. And then she looked down in her lap, and you could sense the emotion brimming at the surface. When I watched it again this week, I thought, that's elegance. That's grace, but that's raw pain. It's been a bit crowded. That's God in Ezekiel. My people, this was our space. This was the bedroom of our soul. This is where we were to be one. What are you doing? How could you do this to me? Have I lost your hearts? Totally? And then God, the anger overflows. Just be clear on this. To not be angry, that's a problem. Client I had early in my marriage and family therapy process, still doing supervised therapy. She was unraveling before my eyes week by week. Why? She was involved in a full-blown affair. Her husband knew all about it and didn't care. She said to me, he'll tell me, go see your boyfriend, talk to him, maybe he can help you. She said, I don't know what to do. Because not to get angry, that's a problem. And that's God. So much so that by Ezekiel 10, he is leaving. He's saying, I'm gone. I can't live here. I can't be with you anymore. I cannot do, it's too crowded. And we look at that and we read that and we say, well, what does that have to do with us? We don't have the pantheon of Egyptian gods all around us. We don't have the Asherah pole here, the fertility goddess. We're not coupling with temple priest or prostitute. What does this have to do with us? In fact, we don't even practice idolatry. Do we? And then we listen to St. Augustine from so many centuries ago. That keen mind from the North African desert. I don't think it could ever be improved upon his definition of idolatry. St. Augustine said idolatry is worshiping what is meant to be used and using what is meant to be worshiped. That's idolatry. Worshiping what is meant to be used. You know, things like cars and clothes and phones, degrees, things that are meant to be used, worshiping them. And then using what is meant to be worshiped. God, I just need you to do this for me. God, do that for me. God, do the. God, aren't you my personal assistant? Get busy. And St. Augustine says, you want to know idolatry? Don't go back into the ancient world looking for statues and images. Look for the places in your life where you are worshiping what is meant to be used and using what is meant to be worshiped. And when that happens, you know God has lost your heart. All through these 4 chapters of Ezekiel, for all of their weirdness and strangeness, there is one penetrating question, and that's God saying, can I have your heart? Can I have it back? Can it be just us? Will you be faithful? One example, just one. From the writer James Bryan Smith, who writes these words, neurologists once scanned the brains of people of faith as they recalled and re-experienced the times they felt close to God, either in prayer, worship, or solitude. Then they exposed the same people to stained glass, the smell of incense, icons, and other religious images that connected people to God. The same specific area of the brain, called the caudate nucleus, lit up in all of these people when they felt connected to God. The caudate nucleus is not a God spot, just the part of our brain that is activated when we feel connected to the divine. It gets even more interesting. The neurologists similarly tested another group, but this time exposed them to material possessions. When they showed images of products that were tied to cool brands, the exact same area of the brain lit up. The neuroscientists discovered that people who bought certain items experienced the same sensations as those who had deep religious experiences. Martin Lindstrom observes, when people viewed images associated with the strong brands, the Apples, the Harley-Davidsons, the Ferrari, and others, their brains registered the exact same patterns of activity as they did when they viewed religious images. Bottom line, there was no discernible difference between the way the subject's brains reacted to powerful brands and the way they reacted to religious icons and figures. Is there anything wrong with those brands? Obviously not. What can be problematic is when we worship what is intended to be used. You know that hit that comes when you score a good buy? Like, your new phone, your new car, your new dress, when you wrap your hands around that new golf club, you know how that feels? Caudate nucleus lighting up. Anything wrong with that? Only if you can't answer the question, who has my heart? To whom does my heart belong? That's why that bride had to hear her husband say, I do. My heart is yours. So consider this. Skye Jethani, blogger, author, speaker, says, my daughter came home from kindergarten with a homework assignment. The homework assignment was to get her parents to see how many logos, how many brands she could recognize. Jethani said, wow, it was pretty impressive. You know, Lego, check. Jell-O, check. Disney, check. That's IKEA, check. She had all these down. Reflecting on that, here's what Jethani wrote. He said, should it scare me that my 5-year-old had memorized more corporate brands than Bible verses or even names of relatives? I know more brands. What was your name? You're my uncle? Oh, okay. Also scary was the fact that no one taught her to identify logos. We didn't have corporate logo flashcard drills at home. Zoe internalized these logos by simply living for 5 years in a brand-saturated culture. This sort of brand marketing has been so effective that the average 10-year-old has already memorized between 300 and 400 brands. When these children become adolescents, each with an average of $100 of disposable cash to spend every week, they will select from these brands to construct their identities they can eat, drink, smoke, drive, play, ride, and wear. The spiritual value of shopping is not lost on marketers. Douglas Atkins, author of The Culting of Brands When Customers Become True Believers, states plainly, brands are the new religion. Anything wrong with brands? Anything? No. Just listen to Augustine. Don't lose his voice in the conversation. Because God is interested in one primary reality. Do I have your heart? Does your heart belong to me? Do you respect that sacred arena of the soul? That's just us. Does it come first? So what is God's dream then? We're having this conversation as a church. What is God's dream for us as a church? Now I want to go to the second passage I wanted to read, much shorter. This one in the last chapter of the 4-chapter vision, Ezekiel 11. This is God speaking through Ezekiel. This is God telling you, here's my dream. I have a dream. What is it? Ezekiel 11:16. Therefore tell the exiles, all those people who are in exile, Ezekiel, tell them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Although I have scattered you in the countries of the world, I will be a sanctuary to you during your time in exile. I, the sovereign Lord, will gather you back from the nations where you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel once again. I'll bring you home. Verse 18, when the people return to their homeland, they will remove every trace of their vile images and detestable idols, and I will give them singleness of heart and put a new spirit within them. I will take away their stony, stubborn heart and give them a tender, responsive heart. So they will obey my decrees and regulations. Then they will truly be my people, and I will be their God. You ever wonder what God dreams about? God dreams about bringing you and me home, bringing us to himself. He dreams about us saying, God, all these other things, they're just things. They're things to be used. I'm thankful for the blessings you have given me. I'm grateful for that, but they're just things to be used. God, you have my heart. Here it is. In fact, I think God's heart can best be seen in that last line of verse 20. Then they will truly be my people, and I will be their God. It's just us. That's God's dream for his people. That's my dream for this church, for you and me together. But you know what that means? It means this. When you fall in love with someone, when you give that person your heart, a curious thing happens. Over time, you begin to love what they love. Things you hadn't had any particular penchant for, affinity to before. This week I was thinking I could make a list of things that were never part of my life, didn't interest me. Except this woman named Anita took my heart. And over time, I began to love those things. So if we say, Jesus, here's our heart, you know what that means? We need to love what Jesus loved. We need to pay attention to who he spent time with, to what he valued. And that's the kind of church we become. Do you know what Jesus loved? Jesus loved broken people. Jesus loved healing. Jesus loved going out into the highways and byways and bringing in people that the organized church of his day wanted no part of. In fact, he did that to the degree I'm reading through Luke again, and I was noticing it just this morning and yesterday morning. Just how the religious people of his day kept saying, what is it with you? Why are you always hanging out with those people? Jesus, you know how his actions answered? Because I love them. I came because I love them. If we're going to be a church that says our heart belongs to you, God, and we will reserve best place in our soul temple for you, then we better love who Jesus loved. That neighbor you have that you dislike because you don't understand them, their cultural ways. That person at the office has a different way of managing things than you would. That person in your class whose skin is a different tone to yours. What about other people that the church has so frequently pushed to the side? What about your gay classmate? What about people who have blown it, messed up? Others have turned their back. I love the words of Fred Craddock. Fred Craddock said, "Tell me who sits at your table, and I'll tell you who you are." You know what said at Jesus' table? His opponents would tell you. They said, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." That's what Jesus loved. He loved the world. So if we're going to say to Ezekiel, please tell God, here's our heart. Please, the temple of our soul, the bedroom of our soul, it's reserved for God. Then we better be prepared for Jesus later to say, then you got to love what I loved. But you know what happens? When you give someone your heart, you just begin to love what they love. So that's what I yearn for. Loma Linda University Church, Anthem Community. We want to give God our hearts. We want to say, God, you are enthroned in our praises in the midst of us. It's just you, God. All those other things, those brands, those belongings, we're thankful for what you've given us. We'll use it well, but we'll use that and worship you. Here's our heart. And when we do that, the interesting thing is we begin to love what he loves.
What an exciting time of worship. I don't know about you, but that worship set that Pastor Josh planned was so touching. And the message, man, the word hit me in such a special way. I hope you too were open to what the Lord was saying through this service today. Want to remind you that just because you are watching this through a screen does not mean you cannot be involved in this space. If you are local, we'd love for you to be involved physically. We have tons of opportunities, so please get connected. But if you are not, know that there's still ways. You can always, of course, give with your financial resources. That is the only way we're able to do this. That is the only way we're able to make this experience for you online. And so if you have opportunity, if you have space, if the Lord has called you to give, please remember you can do so through texting 77977, text the word LLUC for instructions, or visit us online, LLUC.org/give. Finally, we want to make sure that you are following us on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, follow us there as well. We are continuing to grow that community and making sure that all of the resources, so you know what's coming up, are on there. And we want you to be a part of our online community there. So thank you again for being here. We hope you have a blessed week. We look forward to seeing you next week right here at Anthem.